First of all, the minutes. Members, is it your wish I sign them as a true and correct record?
Yes, we agree.
Agreed?
Agree.
Thank you. Apologies for absence.
Apologies received from Councillors Deanna Redden, Bob Patchett and Diane Ross Bolton, Chairman.
Any more apologies? Okay. Right, the next thing is the housekeeping bits. I'm sure you've all heard it before, but you're going to hear it again, just in case. If the fire alarm rings, please use the exits. That's either the one you came in, or for the more able of you, push that bar and go down the outside one, because it won't be a test, it will be a genuine get out of the place. Please switch your mobile devices to silent mode before you start. If not, you have to give a fiver to the chairman. So please, if you don't want to lose a fiver, check your phones now. These proceedings are being recorded. Speakers will have 3 minutes. After that, I shall ask, can you wind up, please? If you don't wind up, I will tell you quite nicely to wind up. This is the only opportunity the public has to speak, so do not try and interrupt during the rest of the debate. You can only speak in the 3 minutes. I'm asking you not to clap, cheer, hiss or boo if you don't like what somebody is saying, or in fact if you do like what somebody's saying. And you'll see officers talking to each other during the evening while you're talking, which looks incredibly bad manners. It's not. It's the only way the debate can continue, getting the answers that you're bringing up. We are listening to you. I think that concludes all of that. Now for the members, the performance outturns, speed of decisions. You remember last month it was 80%. Well, we've gone down 1%, so we're down to 79%, but that's still better than the government's 40% targets. And still we're at 6% major applications, that's 4, and we can only afford to lose 14, so there's 10, and some are in hand at the moment, but we can still afford to lose. So that's the targets for you. Next we go on to members' interests. I don't know whether anybody else is red hot in here, but I'm exceptionally hot at here, hotter than the chamber normally is.
Take something off, Chairman.
Sorry?
Take something off.
Yeah, I've done that. And anybody else may do so as well. Right, members' interest, disclosable interests.
Chairman, advice, please, on 0575 with regards to the tennis court, as the company that is managing said enterprise is part of DDC, and as I'm a DDC member, do I have to give a declaration of interest?
I'm guessing definitely no from our solicitor.
Thank you very much indeed for that advice.
Councillor Randall.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. On DA 2014-0575, I'm on the planning committee of Daventry Town Council.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Lou.
Same for me, Chair.
Okay. And on the Whedon application, way back when I was chairman of this council, members and chief officers used to sign 106 agreements, and I signed a 106 agreement on part of this land saying it wouldn't be built on. So I did that as chairman of the council. It was the role of the chairman to do so. So that is an interest. Councillor Barrett, sorry, Councillor
Just a
Barrett.
member of the planning committee of Brixton Parish Council. That's application 610.
Thank you. Right, party which... Oh, yes, sir. Sorry, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And the same for me as well, on 0610.
Yeah, actually, you've both declared on that you're members of parish council anyway, haven't you? So you should be covered for that.
Thank you.
Party whipping arrangement.
Another one.
Sorry, yes, another one.
I am a member of the neighbourhood planning group in Whedon, whether it has relevance for the Whedon application.
Okay.
But it's just in case there is.
Thank you. I'm sure that's okay. Party whipping arrangements. None.
None.
To members of the public, different parties, political parties, don't get together and vote together or decide how they're going to vote beforehand. Never has been, never will be, I hope. There are several applications deferred, which I haven't got a list of at this moment. Right, 0707 in Braunston, and its listed building partner, which is 0708. 0748 in Barbie, and 0751 in Stourton. They're deferred. I'll probably come back to next month's meeting, hopefully with, well, we'll probably get together, I should think, with the applicants a bit more. Yes. Maria, could you read that? Yeah.
Members have been notified by email about this, but just for the record, because it's a material consideration for the planning applications we're considering tonight, I've just got a short note to read out prepared by Richard Wood, Local Strategy Manager. The Inspector's report for the West Northamptonshire Joint Core Strategy has been received. You were notified of this by email from the Council's Chief Executive on Tuesday of this week, immediately after the report was published, and you were in that email advised where to access a copy of the full report. This is the plan that sets the planning framework for housing and economic growth for Daventry District up to 2029, and including policies for shopping, leisure, regeneration and the built and natural environment. The plan was prepared and modified by the West Northamptonshire Joint Strategic Planning Committee. In the report, the Inspector concludes that subject to modifications being made to the submitted plan, the core strategy is sound and therefore can be adopted. The modifications are those which were consulted upon earlier this year, following further work on objectively assessed housing needs and sustainability appraisal. They relate inter alia to extending the plan period and extending some allocations to increase their capacity. The modifications were considered by Strategy Group at its meeting on 13th February 2014. The one modification not supported by the Inspector is the proposal for employment-related development at Junction 16 of the M1 in South Northampton District. The Inspector has concluded that this should only be included in the core strategy in a reduced form. The next stage is for the Joint Strategic Planning Committee to adopt the plan. This will take place in the near future. The publication of the Inspector's report is a significant step forward in the plan-making process. The policies in the core strategy now have more weight in the decision-making process. This is confirmed by paragraph 2 and 6 of the NPPF, which sets out that policies in emerging plans can be given weight subject to the stage of preparation, the extent of unresolved objections, and the degree of consistency between the policies in the plan and the NPPF. Looking at these in turn, in terms of its preparation, the plan now only has one stage to go, i.e. adoption. In terms of unresolved objections, these have now all been considered by the Inspector, and he is satisfied that these have been dealt with, including by modification where appropriate. In terms of consistency, the policies are clearly considered to be consistent with the NPPF for the Inspector to have concluded that the plan is sound. Taking account of all three tests, the core strategy should now be given significant weight. Once adopted, the policies will form part of the development plan and therefore have primacy in determining planning applications. Adoption is expected to take place in the near future. Until that point, there can be awarded significant weight as a material consideration. The officer reports for tonight's committee were prepared before the Inspector's report was published. Officers have been through the reports on the agenda to identify if the weight now attached to the core strategy policies has any implications for any of the applications to be determined. There are no implications for the applications being considered tonight.
Thank you, Maria. So good news, it makes starting to make life a little better, or it could do. Right, we go on to the first application, which is 0455. Bit of feedback. Can you hear feedback? I did anyway. Apparently my water is in front of the microphone. Right, 0455, Weed and Beth.
Thank you, Chairman. This is an outline application for the construction of 121 dwellings to the south of the village of Weedon. The site is not in a special landscape area, but adjoins it. At present, Daventry does not have a delivery housing land supply. However, it is considered that the proposal would have a detrimental impact on the open countryside, which is considered to be significant to the form and character of the village. The proposal also has less substantial harm to designated heritage assets than Millions, which is Grade 2 and which is also adjacent to the site, and the Ordnance Depot, which is Grade 2 star. The applicants have not demonstrated whether there is harm to undesignated heritage assets through an archaeological trial trenching. The applicants have not also demonstrated the access to New Street is safe or if the pedestrian link to Oak Street is adequate. However, the site could be laid out in a safe manner for all users internally. The transport assessment has not demonstrated the details of off-site footway links, vehicle tracking of the access, increased visibility space to the north, traffic impact assessment relating to the A5 and the A45 crossroads. The proposals would not have detrimental impact on the ecology. The Environment Agency and Anglian Water do not have an objection provided suitable weather conditions are imposed. When assessed as a whole, the adverse impacts arising from the development would significantly and demonstrably outweigh the identified benefits. The proposal is therefore recommended for refusal. The refusal should also be amended to include the relevant emerging plan policies. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. We have two speakers. First of all, Mr. Langley, who's against it from the Weedon Action Group. You have 3 minutes on.
So as you'll be aware from the 500 plus objections and many more petition signatures, there has been an absolute groundswell of feeling against these proposals, and it is residents' belief that Gladman have proposed a development of a scale that would be damaging to Weedon and in a location that is wholly unsuitable for a number of reasons. If any of you know Weedon, you'll know that the proposed site is located as far away from the main roads as is possible. It is accessed over a single track bridge through the narrow village centre crossroads, which are dangerous because of reduced visibility, and at the top of New Street, which itself is virtually a single lane carriageway due to the on-street parking. Buses regularly get stuck on New Street, and unfortunately on the day of the objection deadline, a resident fell and suffered broken bones. This was due to trying to avoid oncoming traffic after being forced to use the road because cars were blocking the pavements. Thankfully, this accident was a rare occurrence, but many people have no choice but to use the road rather than pavements, some using wheelchairs, some pushing children in buggies. This road is simply not suitable for additional traffic, be that road users or pedestrians, and it's not possible to improve this situation. Site access is also an issue. If you know the location, you'll be familiar with the blind summit that will be created, what is the only entrance to the development. There are parked cars adjacent to the site entrance, which means that the view towards Farthingstone Road, which has 60-mile-an-hour speed limit, is obscured and makes the site entrance hazardous and completely unsuitable for hundreds of cars. There's a well-used bridleway which runs next to the proposed development, which offers views across medieval Ridge Furrow towards 2 listed buildings, and no amount of screening can prevent the peacefulness of the setting or the sense of openness from being destroyed. Capacity of the doctor's surgery, the dentist and the primary school are all concerned, particularly because the primary school has recently been expanded to cope with current demand. There isn't any additional land available for further expansion of the school, and the County Council have acknowledged that they do not have a solution for this. Instead, it's likely the children will have to go to surrounding villages, and surely this cannot be considered sustainable. A perennial concern for residents is flooding. The centre of Weedon Village is lower than the surrounding areas and floods regularly during periods of heavy rain. Despite the lack of objection from the Environment Agency, a report by Northamptonshire County Council stated that the existing drainage and watercourses could not cope during periods of heavy rain. If the infrastructure is not suitable to cope with the current demand, how can it cope with this development? As some of you know, there's an extremely active neighbourhood planning process happening in Weedon, and it's being informed by the needs of the community and will help to ensure that the facilities, infrastructure and environment continue to serve the needs of residents for future generations. I urge you to let the neighbourhood planning process run its course and serve its purpose, and have the confidence to refuse this application on sound planning grounds. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Langley. Mr. Dunphy, Parish Council.
Good evening. Since news of this proposal landed, I've been against it on a personal level. However, I'm speaking tonight not as an individual but as a representative of Weedon Parish Council. As such, I'm here to present the views of the majority of the residents within Weedon. To gain these views, we had a series of public meetings during the initial consultation. There was some debate within these public meetings as to whether Weedon needed further development in any form. A majority reluctantly accept that development is required and is probably inevitable. A number of residents actively support more development than Weedon. However, there was almost a unanimous agreement that the proposed development is not suitable in any way, shape or form. These views are supported by on-street canvassing, the comments on the Weedon Action Group website, and by the huge number of objections and the petition comments sent through to the Council. However, I appreciate that the Council requires strong planning grounds to review this application. The technical objections have been comprehensively covered, not only in Ms Hammond's report, which I'd like to compliment for its thoroughness, but also in the technical objections submitted by the Weedon Action Group. These objections have been further supported by the comments of the statutory consultants. I won't reiterate these objections, but I would like to briefly discuss access and the proposer's assertion that the development will have no negative impact on the bridge. The Council regularly receives comments and complaints from residents about the accessibility in the village, particularly New Street and West Street. Cars and buses get stuck, and pedestrians are regularly forced to walk in the road due to the narrow, blocked and sometimes substandard pathways. The proposer says it looks like we all cope okay, without having any consultation with the village at all to support this statement. You only have to ask the lady who Dale mentioned previously, who was hospitalised for approximately 6 weeks after a fall. Ask parents who have to push their buggies in the roadway because the path is blocked. Ask any disabled residents who have to wheel their mobility vehicles in the road against oncoming traffic. Members of the community have been consulted and they have clearly spoken. Statutory consultees have been asked and they have clearly spoken. Weedon Parish Council have been asked and we say clearly and unequivocally no to this development. And I urge the Council to support us in upholding the officer's recommendations and refusing this application. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Local member, Councillor Smith.
Okay, thank you. It doesn't leave a great deal for me to say, in all honesty. I think it's very eloquent delivery from the speakers. I believe, well, we've all had a good read of this. I think it's a very well put together report from the planning officers, and I have to say I'm in support of their advice on this one. I would propose we go with their refusal.
Thank you. Do you have a seconder? Well, there's two hands, whichever one you like. But of course you'll be keeping an open mind after seeing the rest of the debate. Thank you. Who did we get a seconder in the end? Councillor Frenchman or Councillor Frenchman? Would you like to speak now, Councillor?
No, I just support everyone's comments so far.
Right. Anybody want to add? No. Councillor Paul?
Thank you. Confusion reigns. Many years I've sat in this chamber under your committee and not on it. Nobody's mentioned the view from the hill. It's simply overdevelopment in the most inappropriate area. When the M1 snarls up, irrespective of whether a Northampton Daventry link road or bypass, call it what you wish, when it blocks up going north, Weedon suffers the consequences of the A5 slowing down, and it becomes a rat run, and it would only exacerbate what the speakers have already said. However, on page 18 and page 19, Chair, perhaps I could have something for us. NCC Local Highway Authority says that they object. On page 19, Highways Agency have no objection. Now, perhaps somebody could clarify what is the difference between the two, because abundant contention in this chamber for many, many years.
Okay. Can you answer that?
Yes, I can. Thank you, Chairman. The County Council deal pretty much with all the local roads, whereas the Highway Agency deal with the major roads or the trunk roads. In this case, the A5 is a trunk road, so they will be commenting on the impact on the A5, whereas the local highway authority will be commenting on the impact on the local highway network.
Lovely, thank you, Chairman.
Okay. Councillor Owen-Swift.
Yes, I think we should praise our officer for the work they have done. And it's so rare that NCC put an objection, and with in view of the new plan that is nearly adopted, I think it's not very difficult to agree entirely with the officer advice. Thank you.
Thank you. Right, there's no more comments then. We have a proposal that the application be refused as per officer's advice, which has been seconded. All those in agreement with that, please show. It's unanimous. Unanimous. The application is refused as per officer's advice. So if anybody from Weedon wants to go now, or you can stay if you want to, it's going to be empty. You're very welcome. We'll break for a couple of minutes while you leave. Sorry by the way, but when a large number of people go out, they usually stand very close to the door and nobody can hear at the back what's happening otherwise. Okay, the next application is Yelvertoft and it's 0472.
Thank you, Chairman. This is an application for the construction of a turbine off Crick Road in Yelvertoft. The turbine measures 50 metres to the hub and 77 to the tip. It is close to existing turbines at Yelvertoft Wind Farm, approximately 800 metres away. It is considered that the proposal will not result in a detrimental impact on highway safety or ecology. The proposal is considered not to have a detrimental impact on heritage assets. However, there is a subject to approval subject to the applicant undertaking an archaeological survey. The impact on the landscapers through visual, landscape and cumulative impacts is considered not to be significant to warrant refusal. The proposal is considered to be in accordance with Emergent Joint Core Strategy Policy S1 and the framework. The application is therefore recommended for approval. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. We have a speaker, Mrs. Is it Cornell?
Yes.
Yeah. Agent.
Okay.
You can sit or stand wherever you want to. You don't have to go there. You could have done it from the back, but I can hear you easier now.
Good evening, members. My name is Angela Cornell, and I'm acting on behalf of the applicant. It is widely recognised that national and local wind energy schemes will play a major role in meeting the targets for both green energy production and a reduction in greenhouse gases. The installation of a wind turbine at Crick Road, Yelvertoft will assist in both of these objectives. Mr Morris has highly sustainable beliefs. He is very proud to have been a member of the conservation grade for farming for over 8 years and commits to a number of conservation schemes. Mr Morris firmly believes in investing for a future of food production, the environment and clean energy production. This proposal will allow the business to generate electricity for the agricultural operations of the farm, whilst providing additional income which will reduce the risk associated with a volatile agricultural market and increasing energy costs. The turbine will generate up to 1,500 megawatt hours per year, the equivalent of providing electricity for 470 homes. The turbine will have a maximum height to tip of 77 metres. For comparison purposes, the turbines at Yelvertoft Wind Farm are 125 metres and the Conservative turbine at Flinthill Farm is 102 metres. As stated within the officer's report, the landscape officer considers that although there will be an impact on the landscape, the turbine can be assimilated within the existing landscape setting without having a detrimental impact on its overall character. Turning to cumulative impact, officers again considered that the single turbine would be viewed in conjunction with the nearby Yelton wind farm, appearing associated with those turbines and as such would merge into or at least become one of many, and its impact is considered to be diluted. In terms of heritage, the Council's Conservation Officer has considered in the worst cases only that there would be minor and limited harm on the setting of some road glacis, which would not result in an adverse impact and are therefore considered to be less than substantial harm in the context of the NPPF. The concerns of the objectors are recognised, but as stated within your officer's report, it is considered that the impact of the proposal on the character of the locality is not sufficient to outweigh the public benefits of this renewable energy source. The NPPF states that planning authorities should recognise that even small-scale projects provide a valuable contribution to cutting greenhouse gas emissions, and that they should approve applications if the impact of the development are or can be made acceptable. This was also the inspector's conclusion on the Flint Hill Farm wind turbine appeal. Other issues considered, such as noise, are not found to be of detriment, along with biodiversity and highway safety. Shadow flicker will not affect any properties, and air safety will be secured through radar mitigation in conjunction with Coventry Airport. To conclude, the planning application demonstrates that the impact of the turbine is acceptable. It is supported by robust noise, landscape and visual impact, heritage, ecological assessments, all of which have been completed by qualified consultants and which demonstrate the turbine will not have any adverse impacts. The findings of these reports are supported by the statutory consultees who have provided their professional comments on this application as set out in the committee report. Your planning officer has robustly assessed the application and makes a sound recommendation to approve the proposed turbine. It is therefore respectfully requested that the planning committee resolves to grant permission for this renewable source of energy, which is in full accordance with local and national planning policy.
Thank you. Local member, Councillor Sharklock.
Thank you, Chairman. Listening to that story, you'd be impressed with how wonderful all this is going to be, but those of us who live in Yalta recognise very little of it. There was very little public consultation, even to the extent that the people of Crick were refused to visit, and the Yalta Parish Council was not informed of the consultation event until the day it occurred, which meant that they were unable to be present in any force at all. It's also interesting to hear the officer state that 800 metres is close to an existing wind farm, and yet in other applications we're told that 800 metres is a very long way away from a turbine for a house. There's some lack of consistency there, which I would draw to people's attention. We are told that this will help Mr Morris's farming interest. Mr Morris's farm is in Swinford. I leave you to draw your own conclusions from that. We're also told that this turbine will supply the electricity for 470 homes. It would if it performed according to its specification, but of course it won't, because the wind supply in that area is now known to only supply a maximum of 20% of the possible output, and usually much nearer 10%. And if you do a quick sum, you'll find out that that would mean that this proposed turbine might manage to boil 33 kettles. There's also a mention in the report of there not being any TV interference because we've gone digital. Perhaps the applicant doesn't realise that we've had a number of properties in Yalvasoft that have had to have extensive works done, paid for by the operator of the existing Yalvasoft wind farm because of TV interference from turbines. So maybe they're not up to date there. But speaking of not being up to date, it's actually quite interesting to note that when I consulted both our Member of Parliament and the Secretary of State for Energy and Climate Change and the Secretary of State for Communities and Local Government, that's more than two for a both, I understand, I got some interesting answers. The Secretary of State for Communities and Local Government has issued some new planning guidance to the Inspectorate, in which he makes the point that the cumulative effect of wind turbines on an area should be taken into account, and secondly, that the need for renewable energy does not automatically override environmental protection and the planning concerns of local communities. In more detail, he says the need for renewable energy does not automatically override environmental protections and the planning concerns of local communities. The decision should take into account the cumulative impact of turbines and properly reflect the increasing impact on the landscape and the local amenity as the number of turbines in the area increases, and that local topography should be a factor in assessing whether wind turbines have a damaging impact on the landscape. That is, recognise that the impact on predominantly flat landscapes can be as great or greater than as on a hilly or mountainous one. The Secretary of State for Energy and Climate Change has an even more alarming story to tell. What he tells us is that he admits that we have already exceeded the targets for wind energy for which we aim to reach by 2020. And in fact, if all of the applications for turbines that are in the planning system or have been consented and not yet built are built, we will have in excess of 2.2 gigawatts, which is more than 1,000 turbines if they're 2 megawatts each, and smaller ones like this, it's 2,000 turbines. I really think that we've had enough, and I don't think that it's fair to try and persuade everybody that because the Albatross is surrounded by turbines, another one won't matter. And so I would respectfully propose, Chairman, that we refuse this application on the grounds of unacceptable cumulative impact, and that on balance the alleged public benefit does not outweigh the potential harm.
Thank you. Councillor? You're both willing to second, are you?
I would second it, but could I ask also that we put like less than substantial harm to listed buildings, if that is that will help in case of an appeal?
Through you, Chairman, our own conservation officer is clearly indicating that there's minor harm to designated heritage assets. I do not think it would be appropriate to use heritage assets as a reason for refusal.
Okay, and you are seconding the proposal. Councillor Paul, will you like to speak?
Yes, I'm happy to agree with my colleague's very explicit explanation as to reasons to refuse the application. I've already highlighted prior to him speaking that if the turbines don't turn, you don't make electricity. And you know, I drive around Northamptonshire, and quite often enough that they're just sitting there doing nothing. I do agree with you that the cumulative effect, I've seen it on recent visits to the continent, where a cumulative effect has at times gone on for probably 10 miles. However, this has been in very, very open countryside, none of which is available in England. So I am concerned about the cumulative effect. I also come back to the radar mitigation solution. I didn't hear the applicant's comments properly. And have we had written confirmation from the Daventry Airport, the local planning authority, that this has been adhered to? Thank you, Chairman.
So I'd comment on that.
Yes, we do. They are highlighted on page 63 of the report.
Yes, I'm looking at page 63. Why didn't I say?
You happy with that answer?
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I've highlighted it.
In such a long report, it's very, very easy to miss things like that. And it can be managed by conditions. I'm told, yes. Right, any more people want to take? Yes, Councillor Lewis.
Thank you, Chairman. What I can't understand is these the quotes from the Minister, etc., about how we shouldn't have wind farms or turbines. But the planning officers have all this information before them, and they still find that it is reasonable to accept this turbine. It doesn't inflict on the countryside, it doesn't harm listed buildings, and the cumulative effect is not great. I mean, let's state that quite clearly. It isn't. Viewed from many points, it is not a significant effect. So, I mean, if it's that bad, and we've got all these reasons that we can refuse it, why is it up for approval? And I support officers advice, Chair.
The officers interpret all the planning laws, that is their job, and that's to advise us. So that's what they've advised us. The local member has come up in his opinion for what are reasons, supported by some comments made by ministers as well, which are reasons for refusal. You can support the officer's view, you can support the proposal's view, the choice is yours. That's what you're there as a planning committee member for. Anybody else wish to make any comments? Councillor Charlton?
Yes, I forgot to mention something, which is the potential risk of flooding. Yavatot is well known to be a flooding problem. A lot of money has been spent on a flood alleviation problem, but we know that the County Council have already said that they have to spend nearly £7,000 mitigating further against flooding risk. To dump 340 tonnes of concrete into the ground clearly will interfere with its drainage, so I think that people might like to bear that in mind as well.
Did you want to add that to the reasons or not?
I don't think so.
Okay. Right, if we have no more comments, we have a proposal that the application be refused for the given reasons, which has been seconded. All those in favour, please show. Eight. Right, those against? 2. The application is refused for the given reasons earlier on. Next application is 0483 in Staverton.
Thank you, Chairman. This is an application for the construction of 4 dwellings as a replacement of the former isolation hospital in Staverton. Planning permission has already been granted for the construction of 4 dwellings replacing it. Given the history of it, the isolation hospital originally got permission for conversion into 11 units. Then it's demonstrated that the isolation hospital couldn't be converted without really sort of big changes to it. So the construction of 4 dwellings was allowed. This is an application for a revised house type for plots 2, 3 and 4. Plot 1, which is similar to the former isolation hospital, it still remains the same. The changes relate to the overall design, and as a result the dwellings would be higher, but sort of by increasing the pitch of the roof height. The revised scheme does not have an impact or a detrimental impact on the existing trees. It is considered a proposal will not have an adverse impact on the character or appearance of the locality. The application is therefore recommended for approval. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. There are no speakers on this one. So, local member, big pardon?
Joe.
Sorry, Joe, I didn't recognise. Councillor Gill, I didn't recognise you.
I'll
yes.
stand up, shall I? You can't see.
Yeah, I can. It's your hair pushed back. I didn't recognise it.
Stand up.
Yes, you are a local member.
Thank you, Chairman, for allowing me to speak. I was at Staverton Parish Council meeting last night, and the application was again discussed, as was with residents of the village, where it was unanimously agreed that the proposal is overdevelopment of the site and a significant change, thereby contravening the policy GM clause A, B and F. Originally, this application was for 4 times 2-storey dwellings, which was supported with the exclusion of permitted development rights, as both the parish council and the residents felt future intrusion into the roof space, thus making 3-storey dwellings, would be overdevelopment. These new proposals are for one of the original dwellings to still be at 2-storey, two of the other dwellings to be at 3-storey going into the roof space, and one at 4-storey, which again includes roof space as well as basement. This is now a substantial self-contained development effectively in open countryside and unattached to any settlements or the village. I understand that the committee can withhold approval if the scheme is materially different to the proposed scheme. I consider 4 times 2-storey is significantly different to 1 times 2-storey, 2 times 3-storey and 1 times 4-storey.
Yes, indeed.
I therefore ask the committee to consider refusing the application on that basis.
Actually, thank you, Councillor. Members? No comments?
If I like, Chairman, I'm just trying to get both of the, that's the approved one.
Could we see the difference of rules?
Yeah, that's what we just
We're just going to try and
showing
do
you
that.
the two. The layouts are very
Yeah.
similar. The footprints almost the same as before. The access has just changed. I'm just trying to get them both up at the same time because it's.
Look, do we have a
Yeah.
side view
Yeah.
elevation?
For you, Chairman, I can give you the overall height differences between the previous application, but sort of as you notice by the previous applications, it's very much of a shallower pitch, whereas the proposed new development or the revised house types have got a steeper pitch, more traditional. As a result, plot 2 is 1.647 metres higher, plot 3 is 1.397 metres higher, and plot 4 is 1.047 metres higher.
Councillor Irving-Swift.
So I can see. Well, the trouble is, I wish we could have a reason for refusal, but I am struggling to find one. So if anybody has a good reason, because it's just the height of the roof, and it's a tricky one.
Thank you. Councillor
Not that I
Fraser.
agree, but
All right.
As there's extended development for floor, I just propose we accept officers' advice.
Thank you. You have a second then? Councillor Chancellor. Okay, somebody else indicated they want to speak. Yes, Councillor.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I'm a little bit confused actually, because if they were originally the levels they were, and now we're saying they've got an extra storey on, 1.67 metres, sure it's only about 5 floors. So that's not a whole level, floor level. So what would be the two?
It's also because
the effects that change.
Sort of, if you notice on the plot, which is to the southern, which is sort of pretty much got the 3.5. It's pretty much what we call these in the office as 2.5 stories.
Right,
because they've got rooms in the roof.
Right, okay, thank you.
So that's pretty much it.
Thank you.
Okay, Councillor
I
Chancellor.
simply wanted to make an observation which might be regarded as frivolous, but it's meant seriously. I wonder if the applicant might consider changing their name.
Changing what, sorry?
The name with the company.
I'm sure that must have been sent to them. But something that shouldn't be considered. But I understand what you're saying. Any other councillor wish to make a comment? If not, we have a proposal that the application be approved, which has been seconded. All those in agreement with that, please show. Those against? So the application is approved as per officer's advice. Right, you will notice there are 2 applications on for a Harleston tonight. I intend to take them both together now. We shall vote separately on them, but we're going to take the second one first, because if we don't do the second one, if that doesn't go through, well, you can't do the first one. So, if you understand what I mean. So, officers, two halves of applications. Talk about them together and we'll vote on them separately.
Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Chairman.
Before we begin, Chairman, I'd like to call members of Council select representations. Just to also advise that we have received further representation from the County Highway Authority confirming that they no longer object to the application, as they have received amended plans which demonstrate that the requirements that the requests that are set out on the representation have been illustrated on the amended plans. You'll see from the site location plan that currently the site forms an area of agricultural land which is situated in the northern edge of Northampton Borough. The site forms part of an area which is identified within the joint core strategy, the King's Heath Sustainable Urban Extension. On the location plan, you'll also notice that towards the south there's Lodge Farm Industrial Estate, the proposed northwest bypass to the north, and the A428 to the west. Under an application in 2012, outline planning consent was granted for the construction of up to 200 dwellings with associated infrastructure, landscaping, open space, etc. The first application before us tonight looks at the outline application and the removal of a condition. In approving the 2012 application, a number of conditions were imposed on the application. Condition 10 of the application and condition 11 of the application sought details with respect to the noise assessments, and condition 12 of the application sought to restrict the location of dwellings to be beyond 20 metres for both the proposed bypass, the Lodge Farm Industrial Estate and the A428. Subsequently, in providing the information required under conditions 10 and 11, the applicants have demonstrated that dwellings located within the 20 metres of all those particular aspects will not be subject to any harm by reason of noise disturbance from those from the traffic and activities at Lodge Farm and from the traffic at the A428. So the first application before us tonight seeks to remove the condition which states that it should be beyond 20 metres or those particular elements. The second application, if the application is approved, sets out the reserved matters for the outline application and seeks approval of those outstanding aspects. You'll see from the location plan that primarily the layout does illustrate and accord with outline application. You'll also see from parts of the report that the developers have worked both quite hard to accommodate both the parish council concerns and also the concerns raised by the Northampton Borough Council. So consequently, we feel that the application before us tonight is recommended for approval in both the removal of the condition and the reserve matters application. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Chairman. We have a speaker, Mr. Turner, who is the agent.
Good evening. I'm speaking on behalf of the reserve matters application in front of you today and as part of the condition 12 removal. I am the agent for the application submitted by the Sim Homes and David Wilson Homes. Outline planning permission was granted for up to 200 dwellings in June this year. Full planning permission was also granted for the first section of the Belief Road, you can see on the screen there from the roundabout at the start of this month. Later on the agenda, and now condition 12 of the outline application relates to having no properties, including domestic gardens, within 20 metres of the three boundaries. We propose this is to be removed following discussion with environmental health to have no objection to the removal of this condition. Our consultants have put in a noise model of the site and its surroundings, and this was constructed based on the site layout. The model was calibrated based on the results of the noise survey, adjusted to account for future growth in road traffic. The predicted noise levels have been used to assist in developing the scheme layout and the 4 barrier locations in order to achieve requirements for noise levels in outdoor living spaces. The resultant prevailing noise levels have been used to determine suitable facade sound insulation treatments to ensure compliance with the internal noise level criteria and the layout meets the requirements set by environmental health. The application before you is for reserved matters of 197 dwellings, which the case officer has recommended for approval. The proposed site layout follows the principles set by the Outline Commission for an outwards looking development, providing fronts of houses to the existing roundabout, New Relief Road and Harston Road. A play area is sited at the centre of the development with other green spaces located around the existing roundabout to create a greener planted entrance from view from the north. Along the southern side of the Relief Road, a swale and formally spaced trees are proposed to create an attractive landscape character and space between the house and the Relief Road. Green space is also sited to the south of the existing development, involving attenuation areas, side park and existing woodland. We have had several meetings with the case officer to discuss revisions to the proposals. We've made revisions to the scheme to meet comments from Highways, Crime Prevention, Northampton Borough and the Parish Council. Harston Parish Council previously raised concerns regarding the western boundary and the context it provides for transition between the edge of Northampton and Harston Firs. In response to the density of parking on the west boundary has been reduced, a new planting has been introduced to reinforce the existing hedgerow and provide effective screening at a built form to the northern end of Harston Road. The parish also requested the reduction of the flats from 3-storey to 2-storey on Harston Road frontage in the south-western corner, and this amendment has also been made. The houses around the roundabout have been designed appropriately for the site's edge of town location, along with the open space to create an interactive entrance to the gateway of Northampton. In summary, the layout fulfills the principles of the Outline Commission, meets officers' comments, and creates the first part of the wider Daventry development. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, sir. Local Councillor, Councillor Frenchman.
Thank you, Chair. As you know, when this first came up for discussion earlier this year, Harston Parish Council, bearing in mind their civic duty, made no real objections to this development and in fact supported it, and for their pains have managed to gain absolutely nothing out of it for their own benefit. This is obviously an urban extension into an ostensibly rural parish. Their main concerns at the moment, as the agent have just outlined, is the transition between what is in effect a rural outlook into an urban environment, and feel that especially down the western edge, the density of the housing, the setback of them from the road and the hedge treatment are not sufficient to mitigate both the visual problems of that transition and also the noise. What I didn't really think about when I first looked at this is that roundabout at the top left of the development will become one of the busiest roundabouts in Northampton, I should think, at some stage when the Relief Road is built, which we are led to believe maybe sooner rather than later. But I've seen a few pigs flying, but that's another story. The traffic to Lodge Farm, of course, and the industrial units just to the south of there means that that stretch of the A428 will be inhabited by substantial lorries in the evening generally, going backwards and forwards. The treatment of that hedge line against the road is risible, really. I've seen some images that the agents have provided to the parish council, which shows the existing hedge line maintained with the addition of 1 or 2 trees. But if a lorry was going along there, it could just plough through there quite easily. They also, parish council also objected to plot 96 being so near to that roundabout, which is, yes, which is the one just there. But I noticed that there is a 3-metre sound barrier put in for their benefit, but those lower down the road get no benefit. The other problem that we foresee is that as traffic comes round that roundabout, the noise and the headlights, especially in the evening, are going to shoot straight down that road, which is the main estate road, because there is no bunding and that is flat, level ground, and will cause a nuisance to people perhaps further into the development. So I think that though there's been some extra, and it says there proposed hedgerow planted in relation to the concerns of the parish council, that is really more cosmetic than anything else, would not prevent anything such as a lorry shooting through it, and the The problem as the parish council see it, and I tend to agree with them, is that section with the trees in it, where the arrow is now, is an area where kids will probably play from the houses opposite, and if a lorry or a car came through there with nothing to stop it, you know, who knows what might happen. We think that there should be some bunding and further sound attenuation taken down there, and the density of those houses, which is definitely an urban outlook rather than a rural outlook, especially with all the car parking spaces, even with the amendments that have taken place. We feel that that should still need some attention, as the residents of the area have to live with this for the next, 100 years, and all we have to do is look at a plan and say, yeah, that's fine, and then we don't have to look at it ever again. When we did our recent tour around the district, for those of the planning committee that went, the most common thing that was said about the developments was not that they were inappropriate, but that the design of most of them was inappropriate or not right for the setting. And I think this carries on that tradition, and it's something we as a planning committee need to attend to, because people do have to live with the consequences of the decisions of this committee for a very long time. And as Harleston have been very good in their civic duty of supporting this as a 200 house extension to their parish, and they, as I said earlier, got nothing back for it, I think we could at least look at trying to mitigate the problems, if that's the right word, that this development causes. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Frenchman. Members? Councillor Interest?
Yes, Councillor Frenchman addressed the point because it's a flat land on there. And I think with the noise, a sound barrier is not very attractive. And if it's no bunting or no greenery, I can see the point of Councillor Frenchman. Now, can it be refused for that point only if we are minded to refuse? So the condition 12 will remove the noise or the 20 meters, but we think it's maybe not sufficient. So it's a tricky one because we are nearly there, but somehow something has been missed in the new plan. And having gone around the district and have seen development, we were 12, 20 years old. We see how they age. And strangely enough, if something has been missed at the beginning, it's not good 20 years later. Thank you.
You want to comment on that, John?
I'd like to come back to members first and foremost. I think it's important that members first consider the first application before us tonight with regard to the 20 metre limitation distance. If we look at the report, you'll see from the report that your officers' expert professional advice is that they're happy with the noise assessment which has been carried out. Now, if members are minded to refuse that application, to remove the condition, there's a high possibility that the applicants will challenge that, and members do require to have evidence to substantiate that reason for refusal.
Thank you. I've got two more speakers, Councillor Randall and Councillor Frenchman.
Yeah, thank you. I was looking at both of them actually, so I'll forget about the second one. I'll go back to the first one. But on the second one, on the removal of the 20 metres, how near do you propose moving that? It was going to be 20 metres away. What would it be now?
They're proposing to remove the condition completely, Councillor Randall. I can point out to you that the majority of the dwellings are already remain in excess of 20 metres from those three elements, which is the corner plots, the north-western corner, to the north-eastern corner, and 4 properties to the north. This particular plot there is as indicated. From 1 metre to the other corner. We move east. The properties an distance to the new bypass there, and the block of flats immediately to the south-western corner as well. So it's those properties in particular which are located approximately between 12 and 15 metres from those elements. They're the only properties actually which within the 20 metres. With respect to all the other properties, there are some between 20 and 25 metres.
Just to jump in on that, so members are aware or not, are those particular plots specified as the ones that will be less, or is it a blanket one that the developer could, in fact, alter all the other ones if he wanted to?
Yeah. They could alter all the other ones, however, if you look at the Reserve Matters application, which is the application which is put forward for approval, that's based on the demonstration that all the other ones do go beyond 20 metres, but however, the noise assessment carried out has demonstrated the satisfaction of all own environmental health officers that they can achieve acceptable noise levels within the 20 metres on all sides.
Can I just ask, what is the benefit of that? Why move it? Why not just leave it as it is? Are they going to get a few more houses in by doing that, or is it stay the same? If not, why just leave it?
The outline application, which has been approved, Councillor Andrew, commits up to 200 dwellings. So therefore, there's an acceptance that 200 dwellings can be accommodated in that site. Obviously, to achieve the best layout for all dwellings, there has to be some give in the position and the relationship with those three elements. And as I've already said, it has been demonstrated by the applicant to the satisfaction of the environmental health. Those particular dwellings within 20 metres can be subject to acceptable noise levels.
Okay, can I ask a question on the other one now? Going back to just reading the crime prevention design, because they're appearing more and more now. My understanding is they've got concerns because I know that they, obviously that we have got a lot of different thefts going on. That they do like the car visible from the side window on the driveway.
I appreciate those concerns, Councillor Handel. However, the application has been subject to amended plans, and you'll see from the late representations that those objections have been withdrawn following the receipt of amended plans.
Thank you.
I've got Councillor Frenchman next, and Councillor Owingsworth, then Councillor Paul. Monitor.
This application, just carrying on from what I was saying, puts me in a slightly difficult position because obviously we've agreed that there will be these houses built, and overall we think that the design of this layout is quite good, but we have the specific concerns that I outlined earlier, and I wondered whether we could defer this decision for there to be some discussion with the applicant to see if there can be some compromise made on this particular area so that we don't have to refuse it, but it could be passed subject to those talks taking place.
What particular points? The points
about the western boundary, really.
Planning officer, comments?
I just want members to note that this particular layout has been subject to a lot of discussion with the applicants. You'll see that on that particular northwestern corner that the dwellings are set back quite significantly. There is quite a substantial element of open space to provide that transition from a more rural proposal into the urban extension. Let's not forget this is an urban extension at the end of the day. And there is comments from the landscape officer which raises no objections to the proposed landscaping on that western boundary, other than to say that they're happy with them subject to further reinforcements, which has been provided on the amended plans. I do want members to understand that whilst the late representations are before you tonight do raise some concerns, there have been further amended plans to address those concerns, and hence there have been further late representations from the Highway Authority withdrawing their concerns again and again. So we feel that there has been significant discussion to come to the best layout in terms to achieve this 197 properties achieved on this particular site. The consent does have to have up to, the outline consent does permit up to 200. I feel that there is sufficient open space. There's been a significant degree of retention of open space towards the south to prevent both noise and adverse views from the properties to the particularly the Lodge Farm industrial estate. The separation distances of 20 metres is only has only been subject to a few dwellings on that particular plot, and those dwellings have been pointed out to you. And where they are within the 20 metres, there have been noise attenuation measures put in place as well. There was a concern raised by Councillor Swift earlier about noise attenuation measures to how they can appear unsightly from public views. But also, if you look at the layout plan, you'll see there is substantial planting in front of those noise attenuation measures as well to provide some screening for those matters.
I'll just make one point if I may, Chair. That's obviously your opinion. The Parish Council and myself have a different opinion, which I feel is equally valid. And that, as I reiterate, they have to live with this decision. We don't have to live with it, or you, the Planning Committee, don't have to live with it. And they feel that the layout and the transition from a rural to an urban is, I was going to use the word unsustainable, but that's not correct, is not sufficient for a gateway. What's the word? It's called the gateway, but it isn't anything of that approaching that in terms of how it presents to people driving in. They just will suddenly come across a dense urban environment in what is almost a rural setting, and the feeling for the parishioners of Harleston is that that is just a little step too far, and they're asking that western boundary in particular, and possibly the area to the where the roundabout is, needs some attention to make it acceptable visually and also in terms of noise and light pollution, and that they feel they are entitled to make these points because they've got nothing else out of it, so they're trying to make the best out of a bad job. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Patron. Councillor Irving Swift next.
Yes, I know it's a bit because we already have the SUV, but in the condition 12, instead of having a blank condition 12 removed, can we remove the condition 12 for the few dwellings that are going to infringe on condition 12 and not as a blanket? So after they come with another plan.
Yeah, I was going to ask the same question. In other
Thank
words,
you, Chairman.
in other words, the ones you've identified
Yeah.
as being 10 metres,
Yes.
can we just have it for those rather than a blanket one that would cover everything? And they could alter it if they wanted to.
Obviously, if members wish to consider that,
Yes.
then they are able to do so.
Yes.
The only advice I would give is that the report submitted, the assessment submitted by the applicant deals with all properties within the 20-metre range, all those three elements on those boundaries.
But we do have the agent here, don't we? We could ask the simple question, which would benefit the committee. Would you be willing to just have the 10-metre one for the properties that you've identified?
We'd be happy. The layout we've got on the screen is the one we want approved.
Right.
So we'd be happy.
So it's those that the planning officer have identified, if the commission just referred to those, you'd be happy?
10 metres? Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, so yes, it can be done, and I think it'd be a good idea, and so does the committee, by the sound of it.
Can I propose that then, please?
You can propose that, and Councillor Irving Swift, yes, you can second it. The next speaker I've got on my list, before I get to Councillor Chandler, is Councillor Poole.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I'm in a very difficult position that we have professionals and I have no reason to doubt the professionals' advice with regard to their noise assessments. The other side of the coin is that I find myself agreeing with Councillor Frenchman, and perhaps Councillor Frenchman one might be saying is, as opposed to noise assessment, they could have possibly added the safety aspect. I mean, I know that area well. Lodge Farm is not diminishing. However, the way that Durft and other areas are expanding, the practicalities of getting in and out of Lodge Farm area for commercial vehicles is difficult, to say the least. What the relief mode, as and whenever it comes, will do to it, one only knows. But I think probably in 20 years' time you'll see the factories, logistics places on Lodge Farm knocked down and houses built. But I do have a concern with the western boundary, and I would like to see if the applicant is minded, as a compromise, not as a condition, but minded to possibly use some of the soil that he's taken off the site and to use it as a bank, you know, from the top corner down to the bottom corner, but only using that western flank. As a gesture of goodwill, Barry Frenchman or Councillor Frenchman, I beg your pardon, has, you know, said repeatedly that the local parish council have got nothing out of it. Well, as a gesture of goodwill, I would think the applicant could use some of the soil that is taken off site to use as a little bund or a little barrier with plantings on the top. Just a thought, Chairman.
Okay. Do you want to make any comments to that,
If
Plan?
I could just come back to, obviously, if we're looking at the bonding as an additional acoustic barrier, then I'm going to draw your attention to the fact that in the majority of cases the properties are in excess of 20 metres already, and there is certainly no requirement for the applicants to come back with an additional acoustic barrier where it's not necessary. Certainly, I do want members to take into account that the NPPF does state we shouldn't impose architectural designs or particular tastes in reaching our decisions, and we shouldn't be prescriptive when we look at proposals. But we should seek to reinforce local character. We certainly should be prescriptive and begin designing proposals for developers.
I totally respect your advice. I do, as I said earlier, respect the advice of our professionals with regarding noise assessment. When I looked across and said perhaps as a gesture of goodwill, the applicant actually nodded. And I will leave it at that. I will accept your advice. I will approve the application when the time comes.
The applicant, the agent is sitting here, is hearing what you said. If you got a nod, well, that was pretty good. If you didn't get a nod, I'm sure he's getting a vibe from the planning committee that if you could do something towards that, we wouldn't be against that. It would be a goodwill gesture.
Well, two people are smiling, Chairman.
To Halston.
I'd take that as a nod.
Anyway, the second application where we're going to remove the 20-metre one, well, we were going to remove it completely. Now we're specifying which houses are down to the 10-metre one, which is as per said by the planning officer. I think we're ready to vote on that. So can I have a proposer that we accept that? Oh, we've got a proposal.
Councillor Frenchman proposed it and it was seconded.
So that has been proposed and seconded. Could you vote on that, please? All those that support the approval of that, subject to specific houses being named. Please show. Right. Those against? Right, so that's 0684 is approved with that condition, identifying those certain houses. Right, now back to the second one.
Which is the first one?
Which is the first one on your... yes, the reserve matter one. Councillor Chandler.
Thank you, Chairman. An observation, but possibly a suggestion, and then another observation. Regarding the point that my colleague on my right did make about safety as well as noise, I wonder, I know highways have not raised any problem with the A428, but would it be possible to get some arm code put in there? Would that come to satisfy these people who think that lorries and cars are going to be plunging through the head all the time?
Somewhat, sorry.
Arm code, steel barrier.
Like they have informed.
No, it would not be very villagey.
Well, it isn't very villagey. This isn't. It's in no way connected to the village. It's, as Councillor Frenchman said, it's next to an industrial estate and some fir trees.
It's just a thought, Chairman. I'm not.
Yeah. Okay, John.
I appreciate members are in a very difficult situation here. On one hand, we have a sustainable urban extension, which is clearly identified within our joint strategy. On the other hand, what members do want to see is some transition, softer transition from the rural developments into this urban extension. You'll see, like I said, on that particular northern corner, that there have been significant efforts to provide some introductory greenery to that, provide that transitional state. However, I also at the same time understand that there are concerns regarding safety. What I'm keen not to do is to provide a very urbanised barrier within that area, because I think it would be counterproductive to having that green area in the first place. So just for members' advice, I would think very, very clearly before we start imposing boundary treatments, which will then be counterproductive to that end.
Right, we're getting to the point of voting soon. Councillor Irving Swift, put the 3 more hands up as well.
As we discussed, the applicant had a nod, maybe with a bit of a little bump on, not too much, not a mountain, but something like if a car comes or crash, it just roll gently. So that's all I suggest. Thank you.
Thank you. You'd like to speak again?
Yeah, but my final observation was that I'm very pleased as a member of the Joint Strategic Planning Committee to see that this sustainable urban extension will bring forward the construction of a bit of the Sandy Lane extension.
Unfortunately, it won't go anywhere. But
no, it doesn't matter. It'll be the road. No, it'll be an extra incentive to get the other work done.
It does if you live in Brampton. Right. I'd like to go to Councillor Randall. I'd like to go to a vote then, please.
Yeah, thank you. On page 101, pedestrian crossing points are to be provided at the traffic island. Is that on the main road, out of this bay, or does that mean in the estate?
It's probably just there.
There,
yeah.
So right on that busy road junction.
There will people walk across there anyway.
Yeah, but it's not to the level of traffic that it's going to be. So there's no pelican, it's just a pedestrian crossing.
But
that
people won't.
BP lights.
People won't be zooming up that road because it won't go anywhere. That is the road to nowhere. Look, I think the applicant's agent has heard what you've said. It's an agent. It's a company that works a lot in our area. It won't do him any harm to listen to what we've said and to put something right. We can't condition it, and to put some of those things in. I think the modern saying is street cred will go up in Harleston if he does provide some of those. So I need a proposal then, please, for the first application, which is 0568. Thank you, Councillor Paul. You're proposing the application be approved?
Yes, indeed.
I need a seconder. Thank you, Councillor Chandler. All those in agreement, please show.
I hope the nod is as good as it is.
Right, those against? Right, there's nobody against, but I'm sure you're listening to that, Mr. Persimmon Holmes, etc.
Could you just note some abstentions, please?
Sorry, councillor.
No, some abstentions.
Some abstentions. Would you like to show that you're abstaining? Right. So 3 people abstaining. Thank you. So both applications are approved.
We can't have 3 abstentions, Chairman, when there's 10 councillors voting. There's 8 and 3 as of today.
Right. Did you hear that? No. We can't have 3 abstentions when we have 8 people voting. Because 8 and 3 is 11, there's only 10 of you. That's what the officer is saying.
I didn't vote.
Yes, there is only 10 of you. So can you show it again? All those in favour of the application, please show.
1, 2,
7. Those against? Right, nobody against. Those abstaining? 3. Okay, we've got it now. Yeah.
That's the way
Next one's Abbey South. Right, the next application is Abbey South 0575.
Thank you, Chairman. This is an application for the construction of a tennis enclosure, floodlighting and replacement of existing bowls pavilion in New Street Recreation Grounds, which is part of Daventry Town Conservation Area. There is a knowledge shortage of tennis facilities in Daventry district as a whole. Therefore, the principle of such a facility is supported in the district. The main consideration is whether the application preserves or enhances a designated heritage asset. Environmental Health have no objections provided suitably worded conditions are imposed. At present, there are open views through the recreation ground. Yes, there needs to be an improvement to the existing facilities, which there's been some improvement already. The construction of a 9-metre dome and 10-metre external light columns would affect the open nature of the locality. The dome would also be lit at night, resulting in a structure which will be seen from a wider localities due to its glow. Members' attention is drawn to the late representations which the applicants are willing to amend the scheme. This still has an impact on the character and appearance of the locality. The application does not preserve or enhance the conservation area. The application is therefore recommended for refusal. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. We've got 2 speakers. Miss Yates, who's against the application?
Shall I stand?
Yeah.
We've put together the worries and concerns of 11 households.
Excuse me, I'm sorry, I've got a hearing problem. You wouldn't like to walk up there and so I could hear you as well. It's the worst place in the room for me to hear that is. Yeah, just come on onto the corner of here. Nobody will bother you. Yeah, you're okay. Just
next to the tree.
We've put together the worries and concerns of 11 households who all agree this application is overpowering and without consideration for the impact on them and will completely change the character of the wreck. The wreck is in the conservation area and is on the at-risk register of the National Playing Fields Association and a valued green open space in the centre of town. The dome is high with even higher floodlights around the courts and more lighting around the pavilion. The floodlights at 10 metres high, although shaded, must get enough light to play, but the properties are well below the level of the courts. All the lime trees have preservation orders and especially at this time of the year shed a lot of leaves and sap. Rain runoff could add to problems in an area which already floods regularly. The new trees planted by Waitrose are not marked on the map, nor the height of the surrounding metal fencing. We are told the fan is quiet, but it must be industrial strength to keep the dome inflated and will run continuously. The Bowls Club, which closed in 2010, was unable to get funding to improve its facilities as the covenant does not allow a ground lease and it is in trust to Daventry District Council. All the restrictions on the Bowls Club seem to be now being ignored. The club's history is held at Daventry Museum. CCTV will not stop nuisance or warrant priority police response. Both senior schools have their own clubs and these are the only courts in the district without membership fees.
and residents support improvements to the existing courts but without installation of a translucent dome and floodlights. There is no parking set aside as high usage is not expected until evening. Primrose Hill development will add pressure to all town centre car parks. As it is on public land, who will own the dome? If it runs into financial difficulties, will taxpayers be left with a white elephant? There are issues with conservation, light pollution, flooding, noise, wildlife, parking and disruption, not just for immediate neighbours, but the visual impact on the town centre. When there is such a conflict of interest, is it fair to ignore residents, some of whom have lived here for over 50 years? With due care and consideration for the environment and neighbours, we would ask that this application be refused. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Parrott, who's speaking, or is the applicant, or speaking on behalf of him?
I did produce a PowerPoint just quickly. I realise I've only got 3 minutes, so it's just basically to look at the current facility, which clearly is no longer fit for any purpose, falling into a lot of disrepair. We have a contract to run the tennis courts next to it, and we feel that to improve the tennis courts, we need the bowls pavilion area as well. We have got external funding. Refusal of the Planning Commission will lead us to lose this funding from Sport England. We have put on there compromises can be reached. We're not adverse to talking to people and seeing if we can put some compromises in place. Just flick on to the next slide for me. Obviously, we did consultation 2012. 9% of the community felt that a redevelopment would be a positive change, and 82% of the people that answered said they'd use the facility. We do need to encourage participation in healthy activity for Daventry, and there's a big bag of community tennis within the area. We need to engage young people, which we will do with this project, and provide a gateway for young people. It'll be open all year. At the moment, we take the tennis nets down in September. We put them back up in May, so there's no opportunity for people to play during the winter months. There will be employment and volunteering opportunities that come from this, and it builds on the success of similar developments at the recreation park, like the skate park. And we would support local strategies and policies with this. Just the last one. The concerns noted, the dome is removable through the seasons, so we could remove it for the summer seasons if needed, so there'd be less impact in the summer. The structure would always be clean maintained, and perimeter fencing would prevent any accidental damage. Translucent structure would not be harsh or dominating. We have got examples in there. And the lighting design avoids light spillage. There's a lighting map in there which clearly shows it doesn't go past the tree line. The dome fan is very quiet. Yes, it is industrial, but it is very quiet. And we have got CCTV which will go in place. Site will obviously be supervised at all times, so there'll be a natural surveillance will be enhanced. And as we put there, the operating times are negotiable. We originally put till 10 in the evening. However, that could be negotiated. And that's it from me, really. The planning application is in. People have seen all of the details. So, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Before I go on to speakers of our local members that have informed me quite a time ago, and I should take them in the order of Councillor Over, Councillor Morgan and Councillor Hills, who's a portfolio holder, wants to speak. Is there any local member that represents that ward on this committee? I want to make sure I'm not making a mistake. Right, if I'm not making a mistake...
Apologies, Chair.
Sorry?
She's asked her apologies.
Oh, right. That's the other member. Right, in that case, I'll ask Councillor Over to speak first, followed by Councillor Morgan.
Thank you very much, Chairman and members. This is about the 3 tennis courts enclosure and associated floodlighting, New Street Recreation Ground, Daventry, DA 2001-4-0613. You'll see from the submissions included in the report there's concern about these proposals, the impact of the dome and floodlighting in particular. Whilst the refurbishment of the lawn tennis courts, a new pavilion, kiosk, additional public seating, together with an improved care and maintenance programme would be welcome, one is reminded this is a planning application, not a cherry-picking exercise. The dome, a singularly unattractive balloon-like feature, is by any measure, not least by its form and scale, unsightly and intrusive. It would, by its location, be in breach of conservation area guidelines, and is clear to argue with this Council's environmental objectives, which are to protect and enhance wherever possible our green open spaces, of which New Street Recreation Ground, purchased by the good folk of Daventry to celebrate Queen Victoria's Diamond Jubilee, is one of the town's most cherished assets, used and appreciated by people of all ages, some for a place to play and have fun, others to quietly relax. Likewise, the close proximity and visually intrusive impact of the dome and floodlighting on neighbouring residential interests would be overbearing and inescapable. Clearly a quality of life issue that this committee needs to address. There are a number of other matters of concern that bother. The hours of operation, light pollution and noise, in the autumn leaf fall and litter, the runoff from the adjacent lime trees, and not least of these, of course, hours of policing, a resource, we advise, already stretched to its limits, to ensure the dome does not become the focus for vandalism and antisocial behaviour. Chairman, members, to allow the erection of the dome and its satellite floodlight in this attractive green open space is contrary to one of the Council's key objectives, which is to protect and enhance the environment. Our proposal is best suited, taking account of extended hours, for a purpose-built sports park, which this is not. I support the recommendation. The application should be refused. And the key planning issues, because that's what we have to address, are its visual impact due to mass and form, quality of life, impacts upon residential interests, obviously light pollution, and of course, significantly, breaches conservation area guidelines, which this Council, I know, is always seeking to protect. I would ask in actual fact, Chairman and members, this application be refused. And I thank you again for allowing me to speak.
Thank you, Councillor Owen. Councillor Morgan.
Thank you, Chairman. I think, first of all, I very much welcome the officer's recommendation, which is clearly based on a robust analysis and interpretation as laid out in the report. I particularly draw committee members' attention to paragraphs 4 and 6, where it says the introduction of a large inflated plastic tennis dome and its associated lighting columns, etc., etc. A dominant, stark and alien feature. And then we go on again later to having it referred to as an alien dome. And in paragraph 6, it clearly states the public benefit does not outweigh the harm caused. I think we had a very eloquent representation there from Mrs. Yates on behalf of a very close-knit community, very well-established community there surrounding the recreation ground. There's a very significant strength of feeling from the residents in this area about the facility. I for sure don't think the facility is a bad facility, but it's in the wrong place. It really clearly is not the spot. We all know that the recreation ground, particularly the grounds we've spoken, saw a very beautiful picture of the ragwort of, is not well kept. It's a bit of a disgrace, quite frankly. But this dome is not the answer. And as for funding, well, I appreciate the funding might go, but just because the funding's there doesn't mean we have to blight the residents in this particular part of town. Really, this is a truly alien dome. We saw the strength of feeling. There's a number of issues: the noise, the light, the parking, just the social impact and the impact it will have on the quality of lives of the residents in this part of Abbeyshire. So really, I think above all, quite apart from those plain reasons given, this really is not the right place for this particular development. Tennis may be required for the town, but please not at the expense of these residents and a blight for the community. And I urge committee members to accept the refusal and vote with the refusal. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Ward. Councillor Hills, portfolio holder for Health and Leisure.
Thank you, Chairman. Well, I'm here to speak in my role as Community Culture and Leisure Portfolio Holder. Now, this was fully discussed at Strategy Group. It's been fully discussed at full council. But having said that, I feel, yes, it is right that we now have a full discussion at planning. What I want to do is deflay some of the myths and address some of the concerns that are flying regarding this proposal. Now, what's the name of this place? It's called New Street Recreation Ground. Note the name, Recreation Ground. Yes, it's a conservation area. But that does not mean no change when there is benefit to the community as a whole. Doesn't mean no change whatsoever. Improvements have been made to this recreation area. The new skate park, the new play area, and yes, we had some opposition even to those. But now what do I find? Some of those who opposed it are now saying, what a wonderful feature some of these things are. It's very easy to oppose, but you've got to wait and see. And one of the things that was a highlight to me was to see young families, young mums with their children in the summer sitting and having picnics, etc. Because that's something we never quite saw over the last few years. So yes, there are some improvements that need to be made, but this area is improving. What I want to do is talk benefits. Let's look at the applicants. The applicants are leaders in sport and leisure. Their record at the leisure centre is first class. They're certainly not a fly-by-night company or institution, and I know that if they had the benefit of this dome, they will certainly upkeep it and monitor and control it properly. We have the benefit of the provision of an all-weather sports facility for all ages. Not just one, for all ages. We can benefit by encouraging physical activity. That's something we as a council are asked to do. And this includes the disabled. And one of the things it will have will be wheelchair access. And that is something that is badly needed for our disabled people in the district. I've seen these domes. I've seen them, I've been and seen them on street football and various events. The dome is strong, it's durable, it's easily inflated, it's easily deflated, and can be stored, for example, in a shed, a small shed. It is not a permanent structure. So therefore, I think, whilst, yes, it might not enhance the conservation area, I don't think it will deflect from it at all. I've seen these in operation, as I said. The lighting will face downwards. It will give protection from light pollution, but will also give the benefit of giving further protection from antisocial behaviour in the area. And I have to say this, the noise level is minimal. The area will also have the benefit of a new multi-purpose sports pavilion replacing the old one. And finally, the whole community will benefit from enhanced and improved leisure and sports facilities. Benefits, benefits, benefits. This application, I understand, has been supported by the Town Council. I even had a request from our chairman, Councillor Catherine Lomax, saying, you are going to support this, aren't you? But I've mentioned the Town Council. It's supported by the police. It's supported by the Lawn Tennis Association, who are giving some funding. It's supported by the District Council Contracts and Performing Officer, N Sport, Sport England, yes, myself, and the majority of the public that I have spoken to in general. They feel it will be a good addition to our sporting facilities. So So let's have a look at what the alternative is. Reject it, do nothing. Very easy, isn't it, to do nothing? That's the easiest thing you can do. But one final thing, we mentioned time. We've got a while yet, but time goes on very, very quickly. Sport England are providing the funding, as rightly said. Dismiss or delay it for too long and it'll be lost. Now we have, as a council, the reputation for always funding and getting inward investment. And this is inward investment to Daventry as a whole. It's mentioned about it's the wrong place. Well, if you move...
I have to say, Councillor, could you wind up?
I'm winding up now, but I understand, and I took advice on this, that I'm allowed 5 minutes.
Yeah.
So I've got about half a minute to go, and I will wrap up from there. So, quite frankly, it's not cost effective to move it. Because with the extra work that you have to do with the groundworks and that, with whatever funding you've got, you couldn't do it. So, quite frankly, don't miss this opportunity. Left alone, what will happen to the area? I believe it will encourage even more antisocial behaviour. The benefits are there for all of you to see. Don't waste it. And I ask this committee to support this application. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Hills. Before we come to the committee, I'm going to tell you a little story because it actually happened. I had a job to repair a TV, because that's what I do for a living, in Inlands Rise. I think it was 11A, and they were elderly people in their 80s. And I had to go upstairs because there was an amplifier faulty. And the lady said to me, while you're up there, look out the bedroom window and see what the thing they're going to put. This was last winter. So they're going to put there. And I'll tell you what, I was amazed how close that tennis court actually is behind this woman's bedroom window. It's on different levels. I'm just telling you that. That's what happened. I've got no more contacts or anything, but that's what happened. Now we'll come to members' comments. Sorry, Councillor Paul and Councillor Luke to follow.
Thank you, Chairman. I think I would start off by saying my mind is well and truly open, although I would, at this juncture, propose that we refuse the application and agree officer's advice. When I look across this council chamber, I see two gentlemen that I've known on and off for a number of years. Their efforts to turn round the leisure centre in Daventry go before them. They have done an absolute tremendous job. And I would suggest on the back of their expertise and their drive to improve the leisure centre, on the back of that has probably come the fact that we are looking for another centre in the east. However, back to the application, Chairman. Those of you who are grandparents may or may not know the story of the Gruffalo. And the Gruffalo is frightened of the mouse. But the only problem with the Gruffalo, he's got a big green poisonous wart on the end of his nose. Chairman, it's a green wart. The conservation area, or the conservation officer, has done, I personally believe, a tremendous job. I think the portfolio holder has done a tremendous job in selling the worth. However, I look at the late tennis courts at Western Avenue, rugby club, sports area. I am interested that the Daventry Tennis Club is within the grounds of William Parker School. I don't accept that the funding will go away if Sport England were told that it's going to be refused this evening. Sport Active have two operations in Daventry. They have the Leisure Centre and they have Browns Road in the town. Browns Road is an excellent site. We've got the Bowls Club. There will be adequate parking. There is a football facility there, football changing rooms. Sport Active are looking, as I understand it, to promote that area. I'm looking across the chamber for probably a sympathetic nod. Councillor Morgan was absolutely right when he said it's a beautiful, beautiful thing for the purpose, but it is in the wrong place. Chairman, when we talk about a conservation area, and we're all proud to say that Daventry is a market town. Now, if it is a market town, and if it has a conservation area, the attributes of a conservation area are, when you look into them, they look good. And when you're actually standing in a conservation area, the view out of it also has to be taken into consideration. I hear what the residents are saying. I hear what the conservation officer has said. I have worked with Sport England in recent months on a project which I cannot talk about at the moment. I sincerely don't think that their funding would go away. I do accept that it's not cost effective to move. Well, when you say it's not cost effective to move, there's got to be an on cost somewhere. And you know, it's going to be more expensive to build, I would suggest, somewhere else, but that shouldn't exclude it being built. I would also suggest that the Browns Road site has far more security attributes than that within the recreation ground. Recent pictures in Daventry Express have shown a gentleman standing by some very tired looking bus shelters at the bus station adjacent to the wreck. Whilst I do accept that this can come down for maintenance, cleaning and all the rest of it, I also am conscious of the fact that it is easily deflated, and it could be as easily deflated in the confine or within the hours of darkness when it's not being used. I do accept there will be monitoring, I do accept that CCTV will be involved. However, CCTV doesn't stop crimes. I know Councillor Over will object to that comment. They don't stop crime, they deter it, yes, I agree with that. But predominantly they photograph it. And we would get a photograph of this being deflated. Chairman, I have to come back to you afterwards, but I will put this forward for refusal.
Thank you. You're proposing refusal, as per officer's advice. Do we have a seconder? Right, Councillor Frenchman behind you, seconder. Would you like to speak now, or get to
Yes, I would just like to say much more succinctly than my fellow councillor that I agree with what Councillor Morgan said. I was unsure coming into this meeting, but listening to the arguments, I think it swung it in the direction that I've said, and that it is the wrong development in the wrong place.
Thank you. Just so that you know where you're speaking, I've got Councillor Luke, Councillor Randall, Councillor Smith, and Councillor Dutch, another one as well. Councillor Irving's first. We'll get there, and I'll add on Councillor Parker as well. So first of all, Councillor Luke.
Thank you, Chairman. Councillor Hill remarked upon Councillor Lomax's late rep about the tennis court, and she said that by refusing it, we are denying the people of Daventry a chance to take sport and exercise, which is recommended by the government. But the tennis courts are there, they are used, and they will be used even further if more improvement is made to them. because they're not looked after now. Everybody admits that. People just get through the railings, but they play tennis. They use it. There is a desire for people to play. So all we need is an improved tennis court, but not a dome. Definitely not a dome. We're not denying the people of Daventry the opportunity to take part in sport. Daventry has an extensive sporting has extensive sporting opportunities. The improved leisure centre, we've got Browns Road Sports Ground, we've got a thriving football club, and many other minor activities and clubs that provide activity to children. So I don't think you can use lack of opportunity at sporting in this town to accept this proposal. The rec must be maintained to give maximum benefit to all of the residents of Daventry, not just to those who play tennis. Everyone needs to use it. It was given to the people of Daventry, or it was bought, I believe, by the people of Daventry years ago. It's a historic centre of this town. It was there for people just to walk, play ball and run about on, not to have a dome on to make money. The concerns over the long-term maintenance, the parking, the lighting, all these mitigate against giving this project approval. The compromises offered do not answer the compromises offered do not make this development any more acceptable, considering the number of objections. The objections from the residents, the light, the noise problems, the concerns, the parking. It will be a glowing bubble, which will be a very alien feature to this historic town. It is in a conservation area. Some things must be about profit and inward investment. This project needs to be in a more appropriate place, as been noted by many people. And I hope the planning committee members will respect the feelings of the people, residents of Daventry, and approve officers' advice on this. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Luke. Before I go to Councillor Randall, if it is possible, if you're going to say the same things, if you could say the same things, and I don't mean you.
Yes.
If you're saying the same things, can you say them in a shorter time, please? Because we've got another 4 speakers. Councillor Randall.
Okay. Yeah. Right. The town council, they did agree that the facility, a facility was needed, but they also did have 6 conditions that they did put in there because they weren't really clear about the covenant on the land. Speaking to a lot of elderly residents, they do tell me that the actual rec was given to the people of Daventry. So a lot of elderly people and through the families feel that it should be a facility that should be used by everybody. Obviously, by putting a dome over the top and it then does gain membership, it actually stops the people who can't afford it using it. At the moment, they can use it, even if it is a rough surface. I do understand that actually the dome probably wouldn't be able to go anywhere else because it would be starting from scratch. So obviously, by not having a dome, I mean, a lot of people do say that it would be far better up the Browns side of the town. That does need extension because at the moment, it's not used as much as it would be. But I understand that probably they wouldn't have a grant to build that from scratch. But the residents, it is a huge concern to the residents, and I'm happy to support what they would want.
Thank you, Councillor Randall. Councillor Smith.
It's a difficult decision. We clearly want to encourage inclusive activity and sport for everybody. The issue I have here is purely the dome. I think it's a barrier. The fence has to go up to protect the dome, to stop the people accessing that. The lighting does concern me. I would like to see a deferment on this one. I'd love the dome to go away to its alien land. This is an open space for everybody to use in the town. I think I think it'd be wrong for us to just say no, but the dome is clearly not the right thing. But sport has to be encouraged for all. This is already a recreation ground, it's already accessible, it's just not fit for purpose. So improvement needed, facilities needed, but access needed as well. And the dome is what stops the access.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. Councillor Irving-Swift, then Councillor Parker, then we're going to a vote.
I will be brief.
Thank you.
In Melton Mowbray, we have a recreation park with a swimming pool and some tennis court, and they are always used. So maybe for the people, if we are minded to refuse, that they should go and discuss with Melton Mowbray, because it's exactly in the middle of the town. And I think they have a dome of some kind, but it's not obtrusive, and I haven't seen. But every time I pass that, I see people going with tennis racket and they have things. And it's not a big place in the center of town. And I agree, we need tennis. The dome is not pretty. And maybe I'll come with another idea and we will support it. Thank you.
Thank you. And the last speaker, Councillor Parker.
Thanks, sir. Purely an observation. I've heard various people talk, and letters I've seen attached to this document from officers within Daventry, where this has gone through various committees and everything like that. I just find it very disappointing that people have had the chance, the opportunity to talk this through, but it comes to planning to decide whether it happened. And I believe that should have been sorted out before it arrives at this meeting to make this kind of decision. Thank you.
No, it's the principle of something is quite separate from a planning decision. The council can want to do many things in principle and support many things in principle, but it still has to get through planning, and planning is completely different. Yes.
Thank you. The applicants did and have undertaken pre-application discussions with officers, so they did not sort of enter this in the sense that they knew about our concerns about the impact on the conservation area. But unfortunately, in this particular case, we were not able to support this particular application for this site. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Right, we've done that.
Chairman, what an opportunity. I didn't use my 5 minutes.
If it's very quick.
Yeah, it is very quick. I think the point that comes clearly out of all this is that the people who live in and around here, it is the dome that is the problem, not the additional tennis courts, or a pavilion, or a kiosk, or improvements in terms of maintenance of the recreation ground. They subscribe to all those things. In fact, some are sitting behind me. It is the imposition of the dome and the lighting. Without that and the improved tennis facilities, I think I would hope I can speak and say you would be supportive of that. Is that correct?
I think, Councillor, you can be assured that every member of the planning committee recognises that now.
Thank you very much.
A number of people have spoken.
Yeah, thank you.
Right, we have a proposal that the application be refused as per officer's advice, which has been seconded. All those in favour, please show. Right, those against? 7-1. The application is refused for the given reason. Right, the next application, I'm trying to waffle a bit so that we get the right pictures. Right, the next application's in Brixworth, 0610. Presented to Brixworth. Okay, John. Yeah, we're on Brixworth now. Okay.
Thank you, Chairman. The property forms a modern two-storey detached dwelling sided on a private drive and ending a cul-de-sac. Similar properties. Property benefits from a large private garden area to both the side of the property and also to the rear. The application before us tonight seeks planning consent because of the two-storey side extension. The front gable of the proposed extension would replicate the existing projecting gable, and the details in terms of the plinths and joins and window details are also identical to the existing dwelling. You'll see from the report that there are concerns both raised from both neighbours and the parish council regarding overlooking of the proposed extensions to neighbouring properties, and
Thank
also
you.
with respect to the proposed scale and massing of the proposed extension. You also see from the report that the plans have been provided to indicate that the proposed extension is of an appropriate distance to neighbouring properties and does comply with our guidelines with regards to extensions and habitable facing windows and non-habitable facing windows to habitable rooms as well. It is accepted that the proposed extension would be large. However, if you look at the site plan, this existing dwelling is sited on a larger plot than the neighbouring dwellings, and whilst the proposed extension is large comparative to the existing property, the majority of the proposed extension wouldn't be visible from public views, with the exception from lane 508. Consequently, on balance, offers consider the application to be acceptable and recommending this application be approved. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Right, local members, there's 2 of you, isn't there? Well, no, there's 3 of you here tonight. Right, ladies first.
Yeah. I'm open-minded about this one, Chairman. I understand the concerns from the neighbours, and I think bearing in mind where this property is situated, there are no overlooking windows, and their main concerns are about privacy and so on. So I am minded to approve this application. I'll keep an open mind on it.
Is that a proposal?
It is a proposal, yes.
Thank you, Councillor Lee. Do you have a seconder for that? Thank you, Councillor Barrett, and you'd like to speak as well.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, it's been quite a long journey, this application, I think. This version of plans has, in fact, been amended on more than one occasion, as members will see from the paperwork, and also it's an association with officers to try and make it an acceptable development, acceptable to all concerned. Now, I've looked at the site carefully, I do know it, and this extension is, yes, it's a large extension, which doesn't mean to say it can't be allowed. Don't refuse it just because it happens to be large. It's 6.7 metres wide according to our paperwork. That's the largest extension we've ever seen, I don't think. And it's 2 stories high, admittedly, but it's in keeping in materials, size and style with the existing house. It's going to be nicely balanced when it's finished, I think. Again, it's already officers said it's on a larger than average plot as well. So I don't think we can say it's overcrowded in any way at all. As far as there are concerns, I know, from neighbours about being overlooked. And again, the officers tell us there's a 22-metre separation distance recommended, and the distance between the proposed extension and the nearest property does in fact exceed that 22 metres, so it is compliant in that respect. And so that, again, I would say on those grounds it's not too close, if you like. The officers on page 130 do say views into the rear part of the garden would be possible, but at a distance between 12 and 40 metres. Some of us would like that degree of privacy where we live. I appreciate that. It's different in the area, but certainly that's an unreasonable distance, and we're given a reasonable amount of privacy to the people there. Again, on an estate, I don't think that's an unreasonable distance to go for. Again, further to that, of course, is the point that a garden being overlooked isn't even a planning reason, which is what our officers have told us. So the property, I believe, isn't particularly prominent. It's not in a conservation area. It's not overlooking a conservation area. It's a larger plot than the others. The design, well, it's a matter of personal taste. The applicants like it, of course. Some people won't like it, but I said it is in keeping in style and materials with the rest of the house. And there's a certain amount of symmetry about it. And the privacy has been properly considered by the officers, I think, and I'm content that the distances involved don't compromise the privacy of neighbours at all. So, I can't see any planning reasons at all not to support this application and approve it. And taking into account the various matters the officers referred to, That's the reserved matters and the MPPF paragraphs they refer to, I think are no way contravened at all, and are supportive to this application. They'll be happy to second that we support this application, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Barker.
Thanks, Chair. This is the third application. The first one was actually passed by Brickford Parish Council, and the subsequent two were not. Regarding the size, the gross floor plan area is currently 145 square metres. The extension is 133 square metres, so it's a 92% increase. I think that's called an extension. The proposal, which I've said before, has been amended twice. The latest was to ensure the window to window, that's the neighbour, is at the maximum distance of 22 metres, sorry, the minimum distance of 22 metres, I should say. That has now been achieved. But it's interesting to note that the ground floor has also been increased slightly. I would refer to officers' comments. The proposed extension is considered to be poorly designed with the mass and scale out of proportion with the main house. Although it is the officer's opinion the design of the rear extension is poor, the applicant is unwilling to reduce the size of the rear extension. For what I've just said, I would actually, with an open mind, be voting against it.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Irving Swift is next, yes?
Yes. As a county councillor, I have walked those ideas. What concerns me, and it's what the officer said, the design of the proposed rear extension is considered to be poor. So, in the APPF, we say that design is quite important, especially when you live in close proximity. The front is acceptable, but it is true that the back is not really in keeping with the front. So, unfortunately, the back will be seen by the neighbouring property. So I think we should maybe have that in mind when we come to voting, because I haven't made my mind yet. Thank you.
But perhaps there's another thing you ought to have in mind. That is a neighbouring property.
Yes.
That was done with permitted development.
Yes.
Okay? That's one of the people that I think are objecting.
Yes. Yes, but I have to say, I noticed it when I was, and I thought it was a gift. I know exactly where it is.
Right, any more comments? If not, we have a proposal that the application be approved. This has been seconded. All those in favour, please show. 8. Those against? 1. 8 of them. There's no abstentions? No. Oh, 1 abstention. Yes, okay. So it's 811. The application is approved. Okay. 0717, next application is Crick.
Thank you, Chairman. This is an application for the construction of 4 dwellings to the rear of properties off Trayson Lane, Crick. The principle of residential development has been established on site with the granting of outline planning permission back in 2009 and 2012. The 2009 application was actually for 5 dwellings, and the 2012 application was for 4 dwellings. Therefore, the principle of residential development was established prior to the David Wilson development, which is occurring at the moment. The access was proposed off Trayson Lane. The access now proposed is off the existing David Wilson extension to Fallowfields. The Highway Authority have no objection to the proposal. The design, siting and massing will not have an adverse impact on the character and appearance of the locality or the amenities of the adjoining neighbours. The proposed development is therefore recommended for approval. Members' attention is drawn to late representations. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Catherine. No local member here, so anybody like to speak on it? Councillor Frenchman.
Yeah, propose officers' advice.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder? We have loads of them. Yeah, I'm sure you've got one of those. Right, all those in favour, please show.
9, 10.
Okay, so there's nobody against. The application is approved. And last but not least, it's Crick again, a listed building application 0741.
Thank you, Chairman. This is a listed building application for the replacement of front door, door case and canopy on a Grade 2 listed building. The work has already been carried out. The replacement of original early doors and the insertion of new doors of inappropriate styles can seriously harm the listed building. Replacement should take account of the character of the existing building. This is an old forge, which is a lower status building. The replacement door is considered to be harmful to the building, as the oak door is not in keeping with the status period or style of the property. The door should be painted and the furnishing for external doors should be black painted cast iron. The door surround is substantially and is more formal and prominent than the original. The proposal is an amalgamation of styles, status and periods, which is unsuccessful for this building. The canopy should be simple, flat roofed. The proposal is too heavy and bulky for the style of the property. The proposal is more in keeping with a higher status of building. The proposal is therefore recommended for refusal. Members' attention is drawn to late representations. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. We have a speaker, Mr. Lorimer, the applicant.
Come forward, Chairman.
Okay.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. Firstly, may I apologise for the mistake we made not seeking planning permission prior to making these changes. It was a genuine mistake. We regret we've done it. We've spent many years caring for and maintaining the property, working in conjunction with Daventry District Council to do that. First point I'd like to move on to is why we changed it. Well, in 1993 when we moved in, the previous door surround was relatively modern. It was constructed of plywood, as pointed out in the report from the District Council. An unpainted internal soft pine door had been used, which you can see in the previous picture. It was painted in that instance because at the time that was the main road, which I don't know what's going through, and water continually splashed at it. You can see there, and I think the council accept that the thatch that's over the roof doesn't work, it's inappropriate. And all in all, this was being bodged together with plywood, a mock thatch roof, and a pine internal door, which didn't work. So our view personally is that it was of no architectural or historic value, and far from it actually. So in 2013, we got to the point where the canopy was leaking, the pine surround was rotten, and the door had warped to the extent that we couldn't close it or lock it securely and use it, so we were starting having to use the back door. We felt we needed to change it, and looking again at the National Planning Policy Framework, which is new to me, I must admit, it's identified as being a less than substantial change within the Daventry County Council's report, and under that same policy, that they look to secure its optimal viable use. We believe by making the change we've made, we have done that and made it viable use, because it comes to the point where it couldn't be used. I come to choice of style. We took this very seriously. We've spent years and years trying to get the house looking how it does now and bringing it back to its former glory. We looked up and down the road, the A428, and there are a few pictures of similar properties which have got similar surrounds, and there are many of them. So again, in line with the Daventry District Local Plan, GN2 I believe it is, it's important to work with the locality. We believe, again, we've done that. It's important to note, despite the comments we heard earlier, that this was not the entrance to the working forge. That was further down the property, which has subsequently been changed. This was the entrance to the house of the forge. So we don't quite agree whether it should or not be. It's far left, the actual entrance. we've done a lot of research. You've seen the photographs. The Crick History Society, the author of the Village Design Statement, and the Parish Council all believe that we've done the right thing here. The thing that we're guilty of doing is not seeking permission beforehand, and we accept that. Character. The officer from the council came out to inspect the door when they'd been informed of some change, and inspected the door in its current form, and their objection at the time was it was not painted. 5 months later, we had an objection. No, sorry, we'll round it up now. Had an objection that the canopy and the surround was inappropriate. I think if it was that inappropriate, it would have been mentioned at the initial visit. So, in conclusion, we believe it was no historical architectural significance. It had been bodged together with plywood and internal doors. It was no longer viable, and the change is identified as not being substantial. When we look at style, it's an opinion. When we come down to style, you'll see overwhelming numbers.
Can you stop now, sir? I'm awfully sorry.
Okay, well, actually, I must admit, other people did speak for longer than
I have timed everybody. That you've spoken for actually an extra minute now. And I've timed everybody for 45 seconds maximum.
Okay. Thank you. Well, I hope you can take the opinions of our local environment into account.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Members, comments? 3 hands went up at the same time. Chandler is the closest one, is 4 hands. So it's Councillor Chandler, Councillor Paul, Councillor Irving Swift, and then Councillor Luke.
I'm very concerned about this, Chairman, because I had always thought this is a listed building, I believe, and I'm sure the owner must be aware it's a listed building. And I always thought to carry out unauthorised change to a listed building was a criminal offence.
It is.
And I'm sure he would have known that, so I'm really surprised that he did that, and then was somewhat surprised when somebody said he should have asked permission. Also, I happen not to agree that the change is for the better. I think it's out of character. The other doors that look like the new one are not on buildings that look like this, and I really think that this is a great shame, and I think therefore that my view is that it shouldn't be allowed.
Is that a proposal or not, Councillor Chandler?
Yes, Chairman, with the usual caveat
that you will listen to the rest of the
with
debate.
an open mind, but not, I hope, open at both.
I've got 5 speakers, but will somebody second that or not?
Second it, Chair.
Yes, okay. Well, I've got you down as 4, so you jump the queue because you're seconding it, so you can speak now.
Oh, thank you, Chair.
That's nice. Luke.
Yes, I think it's totally inappropriate on that building. We need to look after our listed buildings. We have had cases of doors. We had one at Norton that was not a listed building, and it did really fit in. This one doesn't. I think it looks awful, quite honestly. It spoils the whole building, and I do really think we shouldn't allow it. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, Councillor Paul.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Conscious of my colleague behind's comments about my last statement, I'll keep it short. However, I'm minded of a couple of planning meetings ago where we sat for three quarters of an hour worrying about 2 doors on a club. However, I think that the applicant is to be believed. He has worked hard on a Grade 2 listed building. I do agree with Councillor Chandler that it is illegal or whatever. I would suggest that the surround of the door that he has now in place, with the removal of that hideous moustache which is over the top of that door, to something more meaningful in keeping with other in keeping with that one, for instance, if Maria could go back one.
Just to clarify, that's how it looks now.
That's how it looks now.
That's how it looks now, and that was how it looked before.
No. There was another picture there of a door with a meaningful surround.
Yeah, but that's a different kind of building.
Well, that's a different building, but the surround is not dissimilar to the one that has currently been erected. The only problem I have is that the door is a beautiful teak colour and oak colour. Depends where you get the oak tree from, in either Spain or England, but I'm not going to go into that. But, you know, if you change the furniture to black and change the door to grey to match the rest, I don't have a problem with it. But I would accept reluctantly the officer's advice.
Thank you. Councillor Irving Swift, and then Councillor Parker, and then I'll think we're to the vote.
The problem is, what are we going to achieve? The applicant is very, should not have done it, and we should not. But he tried to do his best. Now, the porch, the little porch, I think is a much better porch than what existed. It's very subservient to the house. And what is shocking is, I think, the colour of the door. If the colour would be painted, it will not make, because he can change the door, but I think now the people of Creeks do not object. They are the ones who have to live with it, the applicant. And I agree, we should always seek planning application when you have a great list to building. But the little porch is quite quaint, and the door, if it would be painted black, and maybe with less brassy finish, might be acceptable for a forge. That's all mine, and I will make my mind when the vote is taken. Thank you.
Thank you. I think the windows are a different colour, aren't they?
Yeah.
And you need permission for that on the listed building as well.
Yes.
Councillor Parker.
Yeah.
I just want to say, having viewed the property this morning, I would agree with what Councillor Owen Swift has said. If that was painted black and the brass was removed to be black, I don't see anything wrong with that at all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chair, could I just make one small comment?
You can do.
As you've always told us, we have to judge the application that's in front of us and
That's
not
right.
redesign it for the applicant.
That's exactly right. Right, we've got a proposal that the application be refused, which has been duly seconded. Those in favour, please show.
With reluctance.
6, 7, 8. Those against? 8-2. The application is refused. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes the planning committee.
Thank you, Chairman.
You see what time it is, by the way?
It's 11 now.